It wouldn't be a football edition of the Sports Cubicle. Hell, it wouldn't be a Super Bowl edition of the Sports Cubicle if we weren't talking about somebody who is synonymous with the New England Patriots. We made all our predictions. We've talked about the big game, but a big story heading into Super Bowl 60 has to deal with somebody who is tied to the New England Patriots, but is not involved in this game. Bill Belichick has missed getting into the Hall of Fame, more specifically a first ballot Hall of Famer, and this has caused a lot of stir in the NFL and football circles. We're here to break it down on WCPT 820 AM, heartlandsignal.com, and WSBC 1240 AM Chicago on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. It is the Sports Cubicle. I am your host, Mike Mercado. It's Devin Tingle, Paul Shivari, and the marvelous one, Dan Marver. There is no Football Hall of Fame without Bill Belichick. There's no history without Bill Belichick, good or bad. This is a conversation you and I, Paul, have had 1,000 times about baseball's Hall of Fame. But this goes back into the sanctimonious BS of Hall of Fame voters. And I love these journalists. I love these guys. They've joined. They're our friends. Some of them are our friends. And the way that Hall of Fames are treated is so crazy. It is so gatekeeping. It is also asinine sometimes. Paulie, what do you think about when you heard this news heading into a huge week for the NFL?
Well, I think I got a different take than I think what I've been reading about and what I've been hearing people say. So, I mean, I think everyone's in agreement that Bill Belichick has done everything possible that one human being can do as a coach to make it as a Hall of Famer. I also think that the 5 most useless words ever cobbled together are first ballot Hall of Famer. If you want to take the pinnacle of one's career and diminish that, you put an extra accolade on it, whether or not they got in first or not. Now, with that being said, I wouldn't have thought about this had I not just read Bill Parcells' A Football Life. Apparently, the committee does take into account whether or not the coach could still come back into the league. This is what kept Parcells out on his first ballot as a finalist back in between his gigs with the Jets and the Cowboys. Will McDonough telephoned him to try and get his gauge on whether or not he was going to come back. Parcells wasn't sure and said, well, I'm retired for now. Let's just keep it at that. And I guess the reason why is because the committee would be worried that the coach could come back, tarnish his career, or after the and this is, very briefly it mentions this in the book. After this, it's all speculation on my part. Part of it could be, Belichick is currently employed right now as a coach, albeit for college. Could he turn this accolade into something that he can use for a higher contract as a way to unfairly gain a recruiting advantage? Could he come back in the NFL and parlay that as, well, I'm a Hall of Famer. Why wouldn't you want me to come back? You're colluding against me. I know all of these things are probably not the real reason, but I did want to put that out there that I don't see a lot of people talking about that.
And I'm glad you did. And I'm really glad you did, Paulie, because it also puts into context that with these type of votings, there is also, and I think Pablo Torre actually mentioned this on his Pablo Torre Finds Out show, a great source for things like that because of the Jordan Hudson situation and how much is that, and Spygate and all the Deflategate, how much that impacted it. But one thing that also apparently was a thing that some of his sources were telling him is that other people thought that other people will vote for him. He was such a lock, such a slam dunk that you're like, I don't need to vote for him. Somebody will vote for him.
What he needed was a Tony La Russa and a Dave Dombrowski in there to just lobby with everyone to try and fit him in.
And why don't we lobby over to Marver? Marver, what do you think about this story that Bill Belichick isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer now?
Obviously, he's worthy. A couple thoughts. There are 50 voters. You got to get 80%, which means you got to have 41. And these are all like media members. I'm looking at the people. They're like, the Athletic and the Detroit Free Press, et cetera, et cetera. A couple of guys said they didn't vote for him. They admitted. Guy from the Kansas City Star and another guy from Indianapolis. Obviously, one could argue that he's still active in a sense since he's a college coach. And there was some talk about the fact that his behavior towards the media didn't help him during the years, which was, not very friendly, but the numbers speak for themselves. So it makes no sense and he'll get in eventually. But the fact that he was denied this opportunity by 11 people out of 50 seems unbelievable to me.
Devin, when you heard this report, when you saw the story hit the newswire, what were your thoughts that Bill Belichick didn't make a National Football League, a football in general Hall of Fame?
I think in a sense, this is what Bill Belichick wanted. It is kind of funny because for years people hated Bill Belichick. Like I said, he was the devil. He was the worst. All these cheating scandals. The Patriots didn't deserve to win all of those. Not first ballot, and several people are changing their tune. Very interesting here. And I mean, what Paul and Marver said makes some sense here. But then again, Tony La Russa came back and coached the White Sox after being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So these things can happen here. But, the cheating scandals definitely are what they're going to use as the excuse. But what no one really wants to talk about is their writers. Look who's also in these votes and in these committees. Former NFL coaches that Bill Belichick beat the crap out of. And if you think NFL coaches are not petty, you-know-whats, oh, you have not met them. So I think him being rude to media being the voters, and also former NFL coaches that he beat the crap out of for years that are holding a vengeance. Because here's the thing. But it's backfiring because Bill Belichick, I don't think he cares. I don't think Bill Belichick gives a rat's you-know-what that he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Because now everyone's on his side. And Bill Belichick doesn't look so bad anymore. Him having a 20-year-old girlfriend doesn't look so bad. The NFL looks really bad. And it's like, oh, man, you treated that evil Bill Belichick so horribly.
I think part of it too is also the fact that Robert Kraft might be getting in, and that they didn't want to have Kraft and Belichick on the same one. And I don't know if what is the beef between the two of them. I mean, other than the fact that Kraft has rubbed some people the wrong way, Bill Parcells being one of those guys.
Some people have rubbed him the wrong way.
Yeah, oh gosh.
Family show.
And the thing about Robert Kraft is that documentary came out where he said that Bill Belichick wasn't as big of a part of that dynasty. And then Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So there are arguments in which what is the importance of Bill Belichick when it comes to the dynamic of the dynasty, but to pretend as if he wasn't a major part of it. Maybe he wasn't, if you're starting to do the dispersing of credit, but I promise you this much, who has more credit of that dynasty is Bill Belichick over Robert Kraft, but one is going to go to the Hall of Fame and one isn't. So what does that say? When one is able to control the narrative, control documentaries, control what stories come out of Foxborough, that might have something to do with it. And you're prickly when it comes to the media, and you're a 70-something-year-old man dating your great-great-granddaughter. Like, there's a lot of stuff that all this is encompassing, but it doesn't matter. O.J. Simpson's in the Hall of Fame, so should Bill Belichick. On that note, we keep things rolling on this edition of the Sports Cubicle. Paulie, any final thoughts?
I don't quite understand. There's a controversy, I guess, with something about the league's bylaws and the voting, and it just seems like that this might have exposed a bigger problem with the selection process.
General Hall of Fames. Hall of Fames are museums.
Yeah.
We'll cover this as we go along. Thank you guys for joining us on this edition of the Sports Cubicle. Bill Belichick, not in the Hall of Fame. Let us know your thoughts here on the Sports Cubicle on WCPT 820 AM, heartlandsignal.com, WSBC 1240 AM Chicago, and on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. He's Paul Shivari. He's Devin Tingle. He's Dan Marver. I'm your host, Mike Mercado.